There's really only one way that Mick Cronin and Corey Close can start and end games, and it's with these lineups that Kris and I are about to debate.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, once again joined by Kris Johnson of those four letters, the 1995 national champ and a part of the Here District pod with his father and national champ of the UCLA Bruins. But this episode, again, hey, thanks for coming back, being an everydayer, and we're going to dive right into it. Kris, first, we're going to talk UCLA men's basketball projected starting five and closing five. We're going to do the same thing for the women in segment 2, and then segment 3, we're going to dive into something a little different. We're talking football, and we're going to see what Kris believes about this football team this year, what it compares to the past, what's the vibes like, what do we think going into this 2025 campaign. So now, UCLA 2025-26 basketball, a lot of expectations, top 5 to top 15 fluctuation for this roster. It seems pretty clear, cut and dry what the roster should be. What do you, or the starting lineup, what do you think it should be, Kris?
Well, for me, in understanding how Mick Cronin operates, he's going to go with his sure bets, right? So point guard Donovan Dent, Mountain West Player of the Year, 20 points, 6 assists last year, one of the top 3 point guards in America. And now the shooting guard position is where I kind of lean on that statement about Mick going on kind of his sure bets and the guy that he has experience with, and that's Skyy Clark. Skyy Clark is a seasoned performer across multiple conferences, ACC, Big Ten, and now Big Ten, ACC, now back to the Big Ten. And Mick's really comfortable with Skyy. And Skyy really was UCLA's best perimeter defender last season. And so having a guy like that in the shooting guard position that can guard and is explosive offensively, I think Mick's going to be okay with that. Now, at the small forward position, I think that this is where things are undergoing a little bit of a change. Like, we didn't see Eric Daly Jr. a lot at the small forward last season. We might have saw him there in a couple of little spurts, and he did pretty solid. But this season, a more of a full-time role is going to be expected out of EDJ at the small forward position. He's been doing the work during this offseason in terms of dropping some weight, getting quicker, working on the nuances, a little bit more of the perimeter. I mean, this is a guy that played center at Oklahoma State because of Oklahoma State's needs. Take it from me, as a guy that played guard and forward, power forward at UCLA, it's not an easy transition, but it's a transition that I think Eric Daly Jr. is primed to make at the power forward. All Big Ten third team selection from a season ago, Tyler Bilodeau. I love Bilodeau for the sacrifice that he made last season, playing a lot of the 5, and then his toughness. Bilodeau brings a tough hockey player lineage. I think his dad played hockey, and he comes from that cloth. So I think Bilodeau at the floor, and plus he can shoot the crap out the ball. High level catch and shoot guy at the 4. Xavier Booker at the 5, coming over from Michigan State, former McDonald's All-American, 5-star, 7'6" wingspan, up to about 245 pounds. Now, the biggest question with Booker is how quickly will he adjust to the nuances and intricacies of the 5 in a college position. But that's my starting 5, Zach. I like it. I think that it may fluctuate depending on how, it looks, especially with Eric Daly, Skyy in that position. I think, we might see some different looks, but I think that's the lineup that starts the season.
For me, I think I'm in pretty complete agreement with you about the starting 5. I'm not sure Mick Cronin's going to tamper with it too much. He's not going to mess with it, I think, in opening night. It's clear cut. You go spend the money, you get Donovan Dent. Skyy Clark was breaking out at the end of the year. He's primed for a breakout, and he's got a good running mate with Dent. He should be the 2. Eric Daly Jr. and Bilodeau, they will be in the starting 5. Now, the question is, what role will it end up being by the time the season ends, the game ends, conference play starts? They will be, at least for now, the 3 and the 4, that's already been said. And Booker as the 5, you go out and get that guy to replace Ndimar, to go be your big man. That's pretty clear. My wondering, though, for you, Kris, and my thought is, where does Jamar Brown fit in? Where does Trent Perry fit in as guys that could slot in? Does Trent come in and potentially, if Skyy's not shooting the ball well, be that 2? Or become the three, and that's where Bilodeau and Daly Jr. slide down and they go small for a closing lineup? Does Jamar Brown come in and be more of a physical guard and change things up? Where do you think those two guys could fit in as a closing five option if UCLA goes from big back down to small for a closing five?
Yeah, I definitely think that that's a viable possibility, especially especially with the schedule and our relatively thinness in the front court position. When you're going on the road and you got to go to, West Lafayette, Madison, and then, East Lansing in consecutive days, the bigs are going to get worn out. I mean, we have a ton of perimeter depth, but the depth in the front court position, I think will have an opportunity to be worn out on long road trips. And so in the event that does happen, right, Mick Cronin's got to make some decisions. So I do think a speed closing lineup would be something that we would see. Depends on Jamar Brown. Now Mick Cronin has a lot of confidence in Jamar. Jamar is a proven player on the Division I level. Can he make the jump to the Big Ten? Can he? And if you look at his numbers, you look at his tape against some of the top-ranked teams in the country, the answer would be yes. He didn't have a problem with the jump in competition. But when you have a Trent Perry, whose development and growth this year could be the difference between UCLA being a Sweet 16 team and UCLA being a Final Four team, I think those minutes would go to Trent on the perimeter. And you're looking at a Skyy Clark, Trent Perry, Donovan Dent. I talked about it before. I compared that crew to the Luther Head, D. Brown, Darren Williams unit trio of 2005 Illinois, for the simple fact that it gives you three major ball handlers, scorers, guys that are all above 38% from the three, with Dent being in the 40s, guys that can also defend when called upon to do so. I think that lineup, along with a Daly Jr. or a Bilodeau, would be an interesting scenario. Another big scenario could be, hey, Steven Jamerson closes the game with Bilodeau, Daly Jr., Skyy Clark, and Dent.
I know you're high on Steve. I know you're high on Jamerson.
I am, because Jamerson has translatable NBA skills, which means he's a good traffic rebounder. He's strong. He's got a big body, and that is going to pay dividends in Big Ten play. When you need a rebound, secure a second chance possession or something like that, you need a guy that's hungry, that's thirsty. Jamerson is that, and athletic, and can sky. That guy can get up. So I do think that there will be some different looks that Mick Cronin will employ at the end of games. And so he has the beauty of it all. He has options, Zach.
And my thought, and I'm going to try and word this carefully when I say the word bench, because we talk about closing five. You think of those last two scramble minutes, and UCLA struggled. We've already touched on this in recent weeks, but they have struggled in the last year or two to hold on to some big leads. Would they bench a Daly Jr. or a Bilodeau for those final 2.5 minutes? Say, like, sometimes you have guys that'll build you to lead, but somebody who's going to help defend, get the rebounds. That's where Jamar Brown could come in and play like a small ball 4 or 3. Like, if we're getting real crazy, you have Jamerson, you have Daly Jr., you have Brown, and you want to be very physical and veteran at the end of the game. Which one of those two do you think aren't the best defensively and could see themselves sitting on the bench 0, 1, or 2 between EDJ and Bilodeau?
It'll be very interesting to see who that is, because both of them have lost weight, their body fat's down. They've been in the lab all summer. So my projection is there will be improved players, specifically on the defensive end. They're watching tape, they're watching film, they're figuring things out. Now, if you talk about in terms of who would I trust at the end of the game scenario, off the top, I'm probably going to go with Bilodeau because of his ability to shoot the basketball and make plays without needing the ball. Now, Eric Daly Jr. may become that guy.
He had that game winner against Michigan State.
I mean, he's shown the ability to be big time, make big time plays in big time situations. So it's really a toss up. Like I say Bilodeau. I mean, I give it to the guy that made all Big Ten third team, for the simple fact that I feel like, when you earn something like that, you deserve to be in the game at the end of the game. But then stylistically and depending on the matchup, Mick Cronin may think otherwise.
My thing is, I went into the numbers. I forget exactly what they were, but you saw UCLA's biggest wins when it was against Oregon twice, beating Michigan State. When the Bruins were playing well, the guy that was going off, it wasn't Bilodeau. Bilodeau had big numbers against good teams. It was EDJ. Yeah. And if he gets to play in a more favorable matchup, right? If he's bigger and stronger than most threes and moving down while cutting weight, so he's maybe a little quicker, a little more agile, but still has that strength element to him, I might lean in my minds that you go EDJ, and we're only talking like those final 2 minutes, folks. We're not talking over 40 minutes. If it comes down to one or the other, maybe I'd think EDJ. But Bilodeau, to your point, if he's cutting weight and if he can defend a 4 to a 5 and be able to be versatile defensively, then certainly I would think he'd be a key option for Cronin late in games.
Yeah, what I think you have in Bilodeau and Daly Jr. is switchable guys. So now these guys are actually good defensively if they're put in switching situations, because Daly's strong enough, and Bilodeau, with the weight loss, he has decent lateral speed. He's not the greatest. He dealt with an ankle injury all last season, which kind of hampered him. So it looked like his explosion was never there. He never had that real pop as far as his movement. So I think we're going to see a different version of Bilodeau. But you're right, to your point, the Bruins were 16-2 last season when Daly Jr. scored 10 points or more. That wasn't a fluke. That is legitimate production when he's out the game, and UCLA is so it's a tough one, man. I right now, I understand it totally the case for Daly Jr., but again, it's going to be one of those things where we got to see who got the hot hand when we make that decision.
So we've got a pretty clear cut together. The starting 5 is Dent, Clark, and then you got EDJ at the 3, Bilodeau at the 4, and Booker at the 5. All this hinges upon, can Booker develop as the 5? If it doesn't, then Cronin has to get creative. If Booker is really good this year, then I don't think I think the creativity for Cronin the last few minutes doesn't necessarily need to happen. He has the options, and if they go on the play miles. But if Booker's there and developed, there does not need to be a lot of creativity.
Absolutely. Booker arguably is, along with Trent Perry, is the biggest X factor on this team. Probably the most important concern for UCLA heading into next season is interior defense inside the painted area. Look, there could be a life that we live as far as the lineup where we're going Jamerson at the 5, Booker at the 4. Now, I didn't throw that out there at first, but when you think about some of these big teams that we're going to have to see, from your Wisconsin to your Purdue to Illinois, who's going to throw out 2 7-footers or likely to have some big 6'10" Balkans running around there, you're going to have to match up with that size or you're going to get crushed on the glass. Now, we learned our lesson last year. We kind of made teams have to match up to us, and we were competitive, top 4 in the Big Ten. But I think this year, again, Xavier Booker's development, his improvement and growth within the nuances of the college basketball 5. The 5 is much different than these hybrid 4 and the kind of the 3 that the hybrid 4 that Booker was used to at Michigan State. But I think that he does come around. Oh, man. We're going to be extremely dangerous, because now you can play those 2 and 3 guards. 3 guards, rebounding doesn't hurt you. You have 2 bigs, and you have a pace that you can play with, and shooting with Xavier Booker. I mean, yeah, it could get ugly.
Yeah, with some of these Big Ten teams that go 6'10", 7 feet, those 5s are shooting the ball lights out. I mean, Michigan, what was it? Yeah, I'm forgetting his name, but they're big man. They had 2 7-footers, and they could both hit the 3.
Yeah,
they could both hit the Wolf.
Yeah.
Hit the Wolf, hit the 3. They can bark it. They can do whatever it takes. And so you have to have the athleticism, and the idea that you bring that both of them could play. That's impressive. That would be an impressive lineup, because we did not see a Daimara and William Kyle on the floor that often, but they weren't combined athletically gifted enough to work together to play, I think, a lot.
And here's my last thing on that. You talk about Mara and Kyle. When you have Jamerson and Booker, you have 2 players that could potentially be more impactful than those 2 were last season. I know we all love a Daimara, but in Jamerson and Booker, you have the potential that they can impact the game a little bit more defensively and on the offensive end.
All right, we'll talk more starting 5s, closing 5s, but we're talking the women's basketball team. Is there an idea that it could look a little different than what we think? There's so much talent on Corey Close's roster that they can mix and match, we think. Or is it not as simple as that? We'll talk about it next on Locked On UCLA. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. Whether you got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in on the game. For me, I'm a big Raiders fan, so I'm going to think, let's go with Ashton Jeanty. I know that, it could be interesting there for a rookie running back. with a new coach, new OC and everything. But Ashton Jeanty, a guy who, when I ran into players that played against him at the collegiate level, said he should have won a Heisman. Now, you bring that in here, think about that. Go more or less. You always want to go check out with players like that. And there's a flex play option, a total game changer, which makes one of your picks. If it misses, you still double your money. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, run your game. And if you're still trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, staying focused through back-to-back classes, we're all transitioning into the back-to-school, the post-summer model of our lives. And the hydration is where it all starts. And Drip Drop is where that all comes in. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed, scientifically proven for fast hydration, using the perfect balance of sodium, electrolytes, and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly. That delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. So right now you're like, wait, I've tried a lot of electrolyte powders, but nothing tastes as good or works as fast as Drip Drop. That's exactly the case, because right now Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. UCLA women's basketball should be number 1 in the country. That's my thought. Now, that's not exactly what we're talking about, but with how UCLA can structure their lineup, it's so talented with Corey Close, what she's constructed this year, despite what the Bruins lost after a Final Four run, that with their starting 5 and their closing 5 potential, it can go against anybody, including the UConns, the South Carolinas, or a healthy USC for that matter, for Big Ten supremacy. Kris, hit me with it. Your starting 5 for UCLA women's basketball.
I have Kiki Rice at the point guard position. I have Charlize Ledger-Walker at the 2. I have Gianna Neepkins at the 3. I have Tamia Gardner at the 4, and I have Lauren Betts at the 5. Now, I broke this down. I wanted to go with a mix of offense, defense, and experience. So that's why I picked these people. Now, when you're looking at Sienna Betts and Gabby Jaquez, those are 2 high-level players that we may indeed see in the starting lineup at some point of the season. But I think that Coach Close, to start off the season, goes with this crew.
For me, okay, let me go with this right now. This is where I think Corey Close is going to go. I could be wrong. I don't have any insight. This is just where I think. Okay, so we're going to go with Kiki. You're going to go with CLW, Charlize Ledger-Walker, Gianna Neepkins. And just because it's been this way, I think Dugalich will be the 4 and then Betts the 5. I don't agree with it. I think that's where it might actually go. My starting 5 would actually have Jaquez as the 4 and then Betts as the 5. Now we can transition into where we could go with that. Now, the thing is, maybe Gabriela Jaquez could be the 3. You could put Neepkins to the 4 as a small ball. I'm not sure that would work as much. Jaquez is like a physical guard that can very much play the 4. It's a little different in women's basketball. But I think for what UCLA can do, a lot of interchangeable parts, because you still have Sienna. You still have, I forget the freshman coming in, but you have a lot of talented pieces. And Tamia Gardner is somebody who could probably be better served coming off the bench, in my mind, as that 3-point threat. And I think Hawkins could probably go for longer spurts. Well, I think you do have to save Gardner, but she can still certainly start. She's more than deserving.
Yeah, and you can go either way, but it just depends on how you want to come out and start the game. I feel like Gardner in the starting lineup will create unprecedented amounts of space for Lauren Betts if you put her alongside Neepkins. I mean, though you're talking about a 39% and a 44% three-point shooter, spacing is everything for Lauren Betts going into her senior season, where she's a projected number 1 draft pick. I mean, we want to get her the National Player of the Year. So I think Coach Close will build, right? So she's going to experiment, try to look and see what works. But Gardner, I mean, on paper, for me, as just in this new era of pace and not new era of pace and space, but in this new basketball era, especially in the women's game, where it's very rare you have a power forward shooting at almost 40% and, another player at 44% in the 3. So I think she goes there. Dugalich has the experience. She's battle-tested. She's tough. I agree with you on that she possibly could start. No question about it. But I think from just in building a chemistry standpoint, I think it'd be Gardner.
Yeah, I wonder where you have Dugalich, right? Who is kind of, some people crack the starting lineup, but then that's the only 5 to 10 minutes they get, other than a few. It's a different, like, we're going to start the game. We'll be a veteran. But I'm not sure that's where UCLA should even go this year. Do you see a role where Dugalich is impactful, or is she clearly a reserve behind the Sienna Betts, behind all those players that could play in front of her?
You know, judging on Coach Close's track record, looking at the last couple of seasons and how Angela has been played and performed, I don't think that she's going to be a reserve. I think that she's earned Coach Close's trust, and she, as a 6-year senior, she definitely is the most experienced player on the roster, and that goes very far. She's a grown woman and playing in a girl's game, if you will. And that matters. That matters. So I think that she won't be necessarily an afterthought, but I definitely don't think she'll be, prime focus. What you're talking about, spot minutes, get her 7 minutes in the first half, 7 minutes, eight minutes in the second half. You got to remember, too, this is a thin UCLA roster. There isn't just a ton of depth. So the people that are going to play are going to play. You don't have the situation where last year with Janiah Barker and 4 freshmen that expected to play, where Coach Close had those rotation issues, as far as the rotation dramas, what I like to call it, where you saw Janiah Barker kind of pissed off whenever she would come out the game. So this year, I think with the smaller roster and with the talent and as far as the depth piled at every position, I think that a platoon in a situation where minutes are dispersed evenly or somewhat evenly to where people are okay and they're going to come in and play hard, and it's going to lead us to a successful season.
And the thing is, I think the chemistry could be a lot better. All right. I think, with no Barker, I think that could be, because Barker was clearly big time, but it's tough to crack that starting 5, closing 5. And it just never seemed like she fully earned the trust, or you're kind of, with so much talent at every spot in last year's roster, you're kind of pigeonholed into one spot, where I think Barker could thrive in a different role and more opportunity. Each player on this UCLA team between CLW could handle the ball. Gave Kiki some minutes off of just straight up bringing the basketball. You have Lena Bilic, who was the player that was on the top of my mind. I couldn't bring it up. Is there a world where we saw Kiki? She did struggle. Clearly a top tier talent in the Big Ten across the country. Is there a world where she could get outplayed by the freshmen and someone else brings up the ball later in the season or in closing minutes? Or am I just completely off base and I should be quiet?
No, your thought isn't off base. Now, you said the freshman. I don't think it'll be the freshman. I think that Kiki is the primary engine for this UCLA team. But Charlize Ledger-Walker is a more than capable secondary ball handler against pressure and can alleviate some of that stuff we saw Kiki get into last year. A lot of what Kiki ran into was being literally the only ball handler that was able to bring it up. So she's undergoing 94 feet of pressure. Coaches were figuring out that, hey, we got to harass her. We got to make her turn, make her do things. And so at times Kiki had high turnover games. But I think that with Charlize Ledger-Walker and Neepkins, to a certain standpoint, that they won't have the same issues with bringing the ball and advancing the ball up court.
And here's another thing. Let's think about it this way. You could go Kiki as the 1, Bilic as the 2, as a ball handling 2. You could go Neepkins 3, CLW as the 4, flip those 2, and Lauren Betts. If you need like a ball handling quartet on the floor, now that would be a very interesting thought, but they're going to come out and pressure. And you're like, Lauren Betts by herself could dominate the post. You would still have your shooters, you'd have ball handlers, and you'd have multiple of them. So you could have good decision makers to inbound the basketball, allow Betts to get down the floor. And I'm not sure if that would work, but that's just a thought that came to my mind, where we didn't always see Arnasalo and Rice hit the floor together. But if that in the world works, you'd have a lot of ball handlers and potential good entry passers to Lauren Betts, which they struggled with last year.
I mean, it's a very interesting concept that you pose, Zach. I mean, CLW at the 4. I mean, a very small lineup with good shooters, spacing, ball handling. I mean, it's a look that if I were Coach Close, I'd probably do an exhibition season as a tune-up, just to kind of see if I really want to try it later on in the season. It wouldn't be something that I would employ in the throes of the Big Ten Conference. But if it worked earlier, you might want to just surprise some people in a couple of possessions. But I think that the bottom line, she has options with one of the most versatile lineups in college basketball and deep lineups in college basketball. The concept of the Bet sisters being on the floor at the same time, working the high-low, dominating the glass, dominating the paint. They both do things defensively that belie their stature. 6'7", 6'4". They move like they're 6'2" and 5'11" at times in certain basketball situations. So Coach Close has a lot of options, but I do think that the safe bets will win out. The safe bets for the starters and the lineups. Like
pun intended, pun definitely intended. The safe bets.
Yeah, but you may tinker and you may try something with what you're talking about just to see how it will work. But again, safe bet.
All right, we'll go with the final points here. Closing five. Who do you trust late in the game when it comes to you need to close the game out? You need a couple of buckets. You got to beat a healthy USC with Juju. You got to go beat UConn. Things are going wrong, and you're facing UConn in the Final Four, the Elite Eight, South Carolina. Who do you think they go to? Obviously, each situation is different. If you need a three versus just Lauren Betts getting the ball in the post, who do you trust?
I mean, it's a tough question because of the talent. And so somebody has to be left out. So somebody got to be on the bench when everybody else is trying to win a game against UConn. And I think that person potentially may be Gabby Jaquez. Now, how people are playing will dictate. Now, if Gabby's in, she's giving us that energy that she plays with, and if she can consistently put that together, game in, game out, and be a threat from on all three levels, scoring and on the glass, and as a ball handler, facilitator, then I think that she could have the potential to close. But if that, let's say in the world where that's not happening, I'd say it would be Kiki, Charlize, Gianna. I'm going Gardner and Betts. Now, Gardner presents a defensive conundrum of sorts for UCLA in crunch time, but she's also very tournament tested, hit some big shots. Cold,
LSU.
Ice in her veins. Exactly. I'm thinking of those three. But just like that means something for me, and I know it means something for coaches in college basketball when you got a player that didn't wilt under the bright lights, that stepped up. Like that earns a level of trust from a coach that you just can't never really replace with anything unless another player duplicates that type of production.
Here's my thoughts. If UCLA is winning, you need Jaquez on the floor. Like you need that defense. You need the rebounding. Gabriela Jaquez must be on the floor. Not that she shouldn't be if they're losing, but it just seemed like sometimes, because it was very rare when they're late or they're losing late in games. But so it's tough sometimes it's good when you struggle a little bit in the season. But in this case, UCLA is just not always going to face that opportunity throughout the course of the regular season. If they're down, then I think Gardner, if they're down by like 6, 7, 8 points, Gardner has to be in the game because of 3-point opportunities. If they're winning or it's a tight game, then Jaquez has to be in. And then the fascinating discussion is, where does Sienna come in? Is it clearly a Lauren for Sienna substitution? Do you go with the twin posts? But then that really clogs up the paint, but opens up the shooting, and that's the sacrifice you take, and you hope every rebound goes your way. That's just the fascinating debate. Corey Close is probably flipping a coin right in there every time. I think with winning, you have to go with Jaquez. If you're losing, then you're going with the likes of Gardner. And then if you really need a rebound in the final seconds, then it's Sienna, it's Lauren, it's Jaquez, it's Gianna, and it's Kiki. I think that would be the number. That would be the lineup if you're going real crazy with it.
Okay, I like that. I like that lineup. Last thing on that, the beauty of this UCLA team is that the players have bought in and embraced their roles, whatever those may be. So Jaquez not tripping on the bench. Gardner's not tripping on the bench. If the roles were reversed, I don't think they're tripping either. So I think that's the beauty of this team. Selfless unit here. So all with the goal of winning the national championship.
I mean, if they're tripping about the roles, final point, Chris, if you're on this roster, you know what the goal is. This is your team. This is your time. You can literally go to YouTube. You can go watch the Final Four. Be like, we got here. If they wanted personal goals, they'd be somewhere else. If they wanted to go have individual dominant stats, they could play it anywhere in the country and be a number 1, number 2 option. They're on this team for one reason, and that's to be a legendary unit to take on a UConn, to take on a healthy USC. Yep. If you need the remembrance, go put on the tape of what happened in early April and get the reminder. I mean, I don't want to say it like that, but that's kind of how it is. If they have a reminder, that's how it's got to be. You just if you need a reminder, go put on the tape and you'll really quickly get there.
No, put on the tape, but like you say, they would be somewhere else if they didn't know what time it is at UCLA. This crew knows what time it is, and I'm excited to see them all come together.
I'm excited too, and we're going to come together pretty soon because football season's just around the corner, Kris. We're excited about Deshaun Foster, Nico Iamaleava. I'm going to see how well you can say that. I'm going to test you, but we'll get there in a second. And then we're going to talk about what the excitement is. Is it going to be – we'll find out. We'll see what the vibe is. What do you think the vibe is compared to the mid-'90s to now? Can it get back there? Are we hyped? I think we both are. We'll discuss that next on Locked On UCLA. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone. So never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more, who's handling this? No. See why over 60,000 businesses trust Open Phone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's openphone.com/lockedoncollege. openphone.lockedoncollege.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. Open Phone. No missed calls. No missed customers. Cruising on into this final segment, joined once again Kris Johnson here. And we've kind of been doing this thing where we talk about memories of UCLA hoops in the final segments he comes on. We're doing something a little different. We're talking gridiron, not necessarily over the best memories, but what are the vibes on campus? What do you feel like from a truly fan, like more of a fan's perspective, an alumni's perspective of UCLA football this upcoming season? Since they have a huge game against Utah, there's Nico Iamaleava and a team that has not a lot of expectations, but are expected to have a season where we'll have a lot of fun. For better or for worse, we'll be stressed, and I don't really know where it'll end up. I do think it'll end up at least with a bowl season. Give me your thoughts, and before you do that, Kris, how do you say Nico Iamaleava?
It's Nico Iamaleava.
Okay.
Iamaleava, right? Iamaleava?
I mean, I believe so. I mean, I kind of go more E and emphasize that. I'm not sure if that's correct, but I'll certainly, that's why we can go Nico. But,
The great thing is the Big Ten just put out, I think it was Ashley Abramson, put out like her saying it like 5 times in a row. And then Deshaun giving her props and Nico kind of saying, hey, that's it. So I was listening to that over and over again because I knew you were going to try to stump me. So yeah, I got it. Okay.
Yeah, you probably got it better than me. I've listened to it many times. I remember when I was listening to it to try and say his brother's, obviously the same last name, to try and say for his brother's perspective. Yeah. And now here we are with Nico. And I think they posted that same video. Was it the worst ways to have said his name before in the past? Whole different discussion. So what's your excitement about this team this upcoming year?
Well, I think that Coach Foster, who was a freshman when I was a senior at UCLA, I think he has a daunting task. I mean, you're talking about a team that's playing arguably one of the nation's toughest schedules in a grueling Big Ten conference. I think the Bruins should be measured. I think success has got to be kind of like measured a certain way. I don't think you're going to see a team that's just going to come out and be world beaters and, kick Ohio State's butt or Penn State's butt. But if we can field a competitive unit on both sides, and we continue to see improvement in some of the pain points that plagued us last season in terms of, the offensive line, the run game, the secondary, things like that, I think that, Coach Foster could put together a successful season. Now, look, the schedule has a lot to do with what the successful season will look like. You're talking about bowl eligibility, 6 games. You got to win 6. It's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough, but there is a pathway, right? So if we looking up the schedule, I know there's like UNLV, New Mexico. If you could sneak one from Utah, Washington, or SC in the rivalry, your trajectory towards 7 games kind of looks better. There's obviously the gauntlet that they have to face when they got to face like Penn State and Oregon and all those teams. So not necessarily going to look at those as like we're going to be competitive. But you never know with Nico, right? You never know because I'm a believer in like when I see tangible stuff. So I'll tell you this. Here's my story. I'm not a big UCLA football guy as far as knowing the ins and outs. But when they made the hire of offensive coordinator Tino Sunseri, I listened to the interview, and I was fascinated by him. Like, he totally tripped me out, like took me aback, because he was talking that real coach speak, and I got to see kind of a glimpse into his coaching pedigree. So he was name dropping a bunch of big time guys, from Nick Saban to Mike Shanahan and Kirk Cignetti over at Indiana, which he worked under, and looking at his track record and the experience of what he brings as an OC. He's a former player. He won a Grey Cup in the Canadian Football League. He was not the primary play caller at Indiana or James Madison, but he had a big say in kind of designing those schemes, and as one of the like co-architects of some of the most efficient offenses on the FCS level and then on the FBS level. Like, dude, this dude was turning guys in the Sun Belt into conference players of the year, and he was getting a new dude every year, and he had like 3 of them in a row, conference player of the year. He takes the kid Rourke from Indiana last year, turns him to a 70% completion percentage, 29-5 interception, touchdown to interception ratio. I'm like, whoa. So this guy has merged kind of the pro style offense he learned in Alabama with some of this spread principles. And look, I mean, I think he's going to improve not only Nico, who is an amazing talent, but needs the refinement on things like footwork and just the little things. He's a big play guy. He's going to do the flashy stuff, but, you know, his progressions, the check downs and making the smart reads and just doing the things that make college quarterbacks great. I think that Sunseri has the ability to implement that in him. And I think that this UCLA offense will be a lot more creative than it was last year under Eric Bieniemy. We ranked, you know, in the bottom, whatever.
Bottom everything. Literally everything.
Of everything. So we were pretty bad offensively. And this guy, Sunseri, has a proven track record, and he has now complete autonomy to call an entire game. So I think that that's something that we got to look at. And now you got guys on the offensive side of the ball. Now, obviously, the offensive line, while talented with the portal pickups, there's still the chemistry aspect. But the coach they brought in, Andy Kwan, has some real good success at Arkansas State. So in a whole, I'm looking at the offensive side of things and like, man, I think this is going to be a hell of a year for UCLA football. I think it's over 30 points a game. I think we increase on the rushing. I think the yards per catch. I think Sunseri is going to put guys like Gilmer in positions to create yards after catch, make plays. Some of these other receivers, we got some depth at receivers, some really solid dudes. So I really am big on him. On the defensive side of things, I'm excited about what the hire of Demetrius Martin is going to bring to the secondary, which is the unit that probably needs the most help on the defensive side of the ball, in my opinion. And you obviously have his son over there doing some things as a leader, and some guys that they brought in on the portal. But again, how is that offense? I mean, how is that defense going to evolve and mesh? And can you make the big plays? Can you make big plays, get third down stops? They couldn't
get that last year. They couldn't get off the field.
You cannot get off the field. And so that's the problem. But I think that those addressing those major areas, right? But kind of the fine tuning of that side of the ball with Sunseri on the offensive side of the ball. Look, UCLA had a top 10 run defense last year. So there's definitely something to build upon. A little bit thinner up front this year, but still have some solid dudes that are going to be on that defensive line. It's hard to say 6 wins, bowl eligible, but like I say, if you can still come out against Utah and kind of surprise and shock the world, maybe still another one, and then hold serve against the teams that we're supposed to beat. We will get to 6 or 7 wins. That's my prediction for the UCLA football team.
Yeah, the big thing I liked about Tino was that it's not like he has a set offense. He's like, I'm going to adapt to the players I have, which is kind of how coaching should be. That's how coaching should be. Have an idea of what you have, teach these players, grow, and be able to work with something successful with the players you have. That's what I liked what he said in fall camp, something along those lines. Hey, it's not like an offensive identity that I have. It's what I adapt with. Hey, he's worked with some of the best quarterbacks at Alabama, helped turn Curtis Rourke into something special before his thumb got hurt. Everything is super special. And you talk about UCLA, they need to make plays. It's going to be led by their offense this year. It has to be. If the defense is the better unit, Kiki is either getting a pay raise by like $1 bazillion, or the offense has really gone downhill. The offense has to lead this year's team like it did a few years ago in 2022 under Chip Kelly, DTR, and company. That's really what it needs to be. Not that look of it, but just numbers, stats-wise, and how the team was driven. And final thing for us in this episode, Kris, you said Deshaun was a freshman when you were a senior. Do you have any fun stories, any fun run-ins with Deshaun
Well, I don't have any fun run-ins with Deshaun per se, other than the normal kind of, what's up and we being real cool with everything. But I do have a many run-ins with one of my favorite Bruins of all time, former UCLA quarterback Cade McNown, who in 1998, we were a game away from the national championship. I think it was like the first year of the BCS or something like that. Edgerrin James runs for like 299 on us. They canceled the game against Miami earlier this season. We ended up playing it again. The game had all the stakes that you could imagine, and doggone Edgerrin James ran for 299 on us, and we took the L. But Cade and I were cool. We hung out a lot. He had a house on Mulholland Drive while he was quarterback at UCLA. Partied up there with him a bunch. Really, ran around LA with Cade, and then to kind of juxtapose our lifestyle, we went on a Christian retreat with Athletes in Action to Colorado Springs. And that was the first time I actually caught balls from Cade. And that's when I really realized what an NFL quarterback, how hard an NFL quarterback, what at the time, a big-time college football quarterback could throw the ball. I mean, that thing was humming. But Cade was always a super cool dude. I got several dudes that over the years kind of tried to, keep in contact with that played UCLA football. But the vibes in 98 were off the chain as far as the UCLA football program.
And I guess final question. Do you think the vibes can return like that, like the early 2000s, where the Rose Bowl was packed? It was packed. I'm not that old, but I know the Rose Bowl was packed. I know this last few years where there's tarps, that's not real UCLA football fandom. We have the fans that can pack it out. Do you think the vibes can return, and do you feel it? Do you feel it in 2025?
Well, when you got a quarterback that can lead, that can do things, that can be a game changer. When's the last time UCLA had a quarterback this good? Who? Brett Hundley? Or someone
like they had Josh Rosen. I'm not sure Josh Rosen. He lived up to the hype, but they didn't necessarily do it as a team.
Josh Rosen, okay. Josh Rosen was the last guy, but this guy does it with his feet and his arms, So I think that's going to add a level of excitement to UCLA football that we haven't really had too much in years past. DTR obviously was great at that, but it's just live. It's live. It's a fun brand, and I think also Sunseri is going to attract talent. I mean, on the defensive side of things, these hires are going to attract talent. UCLA continues to build the brand of football up. They've been doing it forever, for as long as I can remember. They just need to continuously get some really good players to pack out that Rose Bowl. If you get the players, Coach Toledo back in the day, after Terry Donahue was there, we had guys. So you got to have guys. And look, these guys in the last several years, there's been some good guys. But it's just a roster depth, year in, year out quality that you need to maintain. And then you got to win some games. And so if you win, the Rose Bowl will be packed. If we plan for something, people will show up.
And I'm sure I'll see you there, Kris. We'll be giving dap at the Rose Bowl, being like, let's go Bruins, get that A-clap going. Which, speaking about that, it's our favorite time. It's our favorite time. We'll see. Are you ready? I think we're going fast. We're going even faster this time. So if you're at home, you want to do the A-clap with us, get hyped. One of these days, Kris and I will be in perfect sync, but we're still working on it. Mostly because technology is crazy. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight. I think we're doing better. We're getting better. We're getting better. We're getting better. That is Kris Johnson.
We got this part.
Fight. There we go. We got it. Getting excited. Got Kris Johnson, those four letters. Check it out. Here, District, 1995 national champ, longtime Bruin. Thanks for your time, Kris, as always.
Thanks for having me, Zach. Always fun.
And this has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.